You won't believe this, but in parts of Manhattan, renters are paying over $5,000 a month for a one-bedroom. Not a luxury penthouse, just a regular apartment in a decent building. What's worse, people are fighting over it, outbidding each other, and losing. So what's happening to New York City? Why is rent skyrocketing like we're in some kind of luxury apocalypse? And more importantly, who's actually behind this madness? New York City has always been expensive, sure. It's the city of ambition, skyscrapers, late-night hustle. But something has changed in 2024 and 2025. Prices aren't just high, they're irrational. Families that once survived in the city are getting pushed out. Middle-class professionals, people with good jobs, can't even afford studios. And the working class? They're hanging by a thread. This isn't just a housing market problem. It's a social, political, and economic bomb ticking under America's most iconic city. In today's video, we're going to uncover exactly what's happening in New York's rental market, why prices are soaring beyond logic, and who's benefiting from this financial chaos. We'll dig into Wall Street landlords, broken zoning laws, pandemic-era disruptions, and a silent war between profit and people. Stick around, because this story affects not just New Yorkers, but every urban renter in America. It begins quietly, almost innocently. A young couple walks into an open house in the East Village. An 800-square-foot one-bedroom, nothing special. No doorman, 3 flights of stairs. The real estate agent doesn't blink when he says the rent is $4,500. The couple flinches, but they nod, ask about the application process, and thank him politely. An hour later, another couple walks in, offering $4,800 to skip the queue. This is the new normal. What's happening in New York City is not just a housing market correction. It's not just inflation. It's a seismic shift in how cities work, who they serve, and what kind of people they allow to exist within their borders. Rent isn't just expensive, it's exclusive. It's the gatekeeper to opportunity, culture, proximity to power. And in New York, that gate is being slammed shut on millions. But this didn't happen overnight, and it didn't happen by accident. Back in the early 2000s, even after 9/11 rocked Lower Manhattan, the city was still accessible. Artists squatted in lofts. Students lived 4 to a unit. Actors, immigrants, retail workers, all somehow made it work. Sure, the apartments were small and the conditions weren't always ideal, but NYC was alive. There was grit, energy, texture. Then came the money. Wall Street bonuses, tech IPOs, foreign investors parking capital in American real estate. Slowly, affordability eroded. Not because supply disappeared, but because demand changed. The city didn't become more populated by the working class. It became more populated by the wealthy. Neighborhoods like Williamsburg, Long Island City, and even parts of the South Bronx turned into battlegrounds, not of crime but of capital. High-rises shot up. Luxury developments offered concierge services, rooftop pools, yoga studios. And the people who'd lived there for decades? Slowly pushed out by rent hikes, buyouts, and rising property taxes. Then came the hedge funds, the private equity giants. Names like Blackstone, Greystar, and Brookfield are better known for skyscrapers, stocks, and shopping malls. But after the 2008 housing crash, they saw something else. Residential real estate as a goldmine. Thousands of foreclosures gave them a chance to snatch up single-family homes across the US, turning them into rentals. But NYC, that was the crown jewel. These corporate landlords don't own a handful of properties. They own portfolios, dozens, hundreds, sometimes thousands of rental units across boroughs. They use data-driven rent-setting software to extract the absolute maximum from every square foot. RealPage, YieldStar, LRO. Names that sound like tech startups, but operate like rent-raising algorithms. A landlord might say, "We're just keeping up with the market." But what happens when you are the market? In 2022, a ProPublica investigation found that RealPage was being used by landlords across major cities to coordinate rent pricing, effectively eliminating competition. In NYC, where just a few mega firms control a large portion of available rentals, this coordination leads to a runaway effect. When one raises rent, they all do, and tenants have nowhere to go. And here's the real kicker. These companies are backed by institutional investors, pension funds, endowments, hedge funds. They expect quarterly returns. So your rent isn't just covering your apartment. It's paying dividends to retirees in California, financiers in London, and sovereign wealth funds in the Middle East. But corporations aren't the only force driving scarcity. Let's talk about Airbnb. New York has battled short-term rental platforms for years. The city technically bans unlicensed rentals of entire units for fewer than 30 days. But enforcement? That's another story. Thousands of apartments that once housed long-term tenants are now being run as illegal hotels. Here's how it works. A landlord or property manager lists units under fake host names, often using shell companies. They rotate hosts, change descriptions, and reroute communication through third-party booking apps. A two-bedroom in Hell's Kitchen, once home to a family of 4, is now a revolving door for tourists. This practice removes inventory from the rental market, artificially raising scarcity, and it's lucrative. Some landlords earn 2 to 3 times what they'd get from a regular tenant. So of course they do it. And even when the city cracks down, the damage is already done. For every unit turned into an Airbnb, that's one less option for a nurse, a teacher, a single parent. Now let's talk about zoning. The invisible hand shaping what gets built and what doesn't. Over 50% of New York City's residential land is zoned for low-density housing, which means no large apartment buildings, no multifamily units, no affordable high-rises. In practice, that means vast stretches of Queens, Brooklyn, and even parts of Manhattan can't legally house more people. They're locked into the past. This is often framed as preserving neighborhood character. But let's call it what it is: gatekeeping. When you restrict what can be built, you restrict who can live there. These zoning laws were born in a different era, often laced with classism, and in some cases racism. And yet they remain untouched. Developers who do try to build new housing must navigate an obstacle course of community board approvals, lawsuits, environmental reviews, and public hearings that can drag on for years. And when the building is finally approved, it's priced for the upper middle class, not working families. Why? Because the legal, financial, and bureaucratic cost of building in NYC is so high, developers have no choice but to go luxury just to break even. The result? A city that builds for the few while pricing out the many. At one time, rent-stabilized apartments were the lifeblood of New York. Over 1 million units were protected under laws that limited annual rent increases and protected tenants from sudden evictions. But loopholes allowed landlords to deregulate those units. If a tenant moved out, the unit could be renovated and vacancy decontrolled. If enough improvements were made, rent limits could be removed entirely. This created a perverse incentive. Landlords had a financial motive to push tenants out. Stories emerged of landlords harassing tenants, cutting heat, refusing repairs, and even offering cash to leave, all to raise the rent. Some succeeded, others triggered legal battles. The 2019 rent reform law tried to close these loopholes, but the market had already been reshaped. Tens of thousands of units had already slipped out of the system. It's easy to talk numbers: $5,000 rents, 30% increases, REIT profits. But this isn't just about money. It's about identity, culture, belonging. When rent becomes unaffordable, people don't just move, they disappear. An actor leaves for Atlanta. A jazz musician relocates to Detroit. A Dominican family uproots to Allentown. Bit by bit, the soul of the city changes. You see it in the coffee shops. No more late-night poets scribbling in notebooks. You see it on the trains. More suits, fewer uniforms. You feel it in the neighborhoods. Boutiques replacing bodegas, Pilates replacing playgrounds. A city is its people. And when the people who built New York can't afford to live there, what's left? So who's to blame? It's easy to point at landlords. And yes, some are exploitative. But many are small-time owners caught in the same rising cost squeeze. It's tempting to blame developers. But in truth, most are just responding to what the system allows. The real culprits are structural investors who treat housing as a commodity, not a human need. Policymakers who preserve exclusionary zoning. Tech platforms that enable illegal short-term rentals. Financial firms that extract value from communities without reinvesting in them. And a society that for decades has refused to build enough homes, especially affordable ones. This is the consequence of treating shelter as an investment vehicle, rather than a public good. The big question, is this sustainable? No, and deep down we all know it. Every city has a breaking point. If the people who run it, staff it, teach in it, heal in it, if they can't live there, the city stops working. And New York is flirting with that edge. Already, companies are struggling to fill essential jobs. Schools are understaffed, hospitals are overwhelmed, and still, rents rise. The danger isn't just a housing crisis, it's a civic collapse. Because when a city becomes unlivable for its own people, what remains is a hollow shell, a postcard version of itself. If you're living in NYC or thinking of moving, you need strategy. Use housing lotteries. NYC.gov offers affordable housing lotteries for income-eligible applicants. It's competitive, but you have nothing to lose. Explore rent-stabilized units. Use tools like whoownswhat.nyc and justfix.nyc to identify rent-stabilized buildings. These units offer protections and slow rent increases. Co-living spaces. Though controversial, some co-living startups offer fully furnished rooms with shorter leases and utilities included, which can reduce upfront costs. Negotiate before signing. Even in hot markets, some landlords will negotiate on longer leases, security deposits, or rent concessions, especially off-season. Watch for Airbnbs posing as rentals. Many buildings skirt laws by using corporate leases or short-term models. Make sure you're signing a legitimate residential lease. And if you're really priced out, consider leaving. Cities like Philadelphia, Atlanta, and even parts of New Jersey offer a similar vibe with a far more affordable cost of living. Just this month, the Rent Guidelines Board in NYC proposed yet another increase in allowable rent hikes, despite public outrage. At the same time, data from the NYC Department of Housing Preservation and Development shows the city is still tens of thousands of units behind its affordable housing goals for 2025. Meanwhile, several advocacy groups are suing large landlords for price fixing through software like RealPage, which is being investigated by the DOJ. If true, this could expose a hidden cartel driving up rent prices citywide. The New York rent crisis isn't a coincidence. It's the result of systemic greed, policy failure, and corporate takeover. And it's not just about buildings. It's about people. It's about who gets to live in this city, and who gets forced out. Have you experienced rent shock in NYC or another major city? Share your story. I read every comment. I truly hope you got some valuable insights from this video. If you did, smash that like button. It tells me you want more. To stay in the loop and never miss out, make sure you're subscribed. Click that button and the bell icon. Now, I'm super curious to know what you think. Drop your comments down below. Let's chat. Your support means the world, and I can't wait to connect with you in the next one.